What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB Thursday, August 12th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for today's MLB slate.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, welcome back. The picks crushed it yesterday, so let's see if we can keep that momentum going here tonight. We got a 4-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the pitcher position. I like Jose Barrios with a 12% pitching advantage over a low salary batting team, the Los Angeles Angels. Jose Barrios, he pitches his best ball versus righty batters, only giving up a .586 OPS versus righties, and he's facing 7 righties here tonight. On top of that, the Angels have only hit 12 of his last 63 pitches. That's a 190 batting average and a pretty decent sample size. He's $8,500 FanDuel salary, $300 more on DraftKings. He's projected at 21.3 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score at least 30 fantasy points here. He has an ERA of 3.23, record is 8-5 on the season, pitching 96 pitches per game, and he's averaging 35 fantasy points per game. He's scored 37, 49, and 37 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Jose Barrios here versus the Los Angeles Angels. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher first base position. I like Brandon Belt with a 23% batting advantage over German Marquez. Brandon Belt is batting 18% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .991 OPS versus righties, and German Marquez, he's giving up a .652 OPS versus lefties. But the reason I like this pick is because Brandon Belt is 12 for 28, batting a .429 batting average and a 1.181 OPS versus Marquez. He's $3,300 FanDuel salary, $600 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.9 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 9, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Brandon Belt here versus German Marquez. I also like Andrew Vaughn with a 38% batting advantage over Andrew Heaney. Andrew Vaughn is batting 33% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a 1.016 OPS versus lefties, and Andrew Heaney, he pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, giving up a .774 OPS versus righties. Now, Andrew Vaughn is 0 for 1 versus Heaney, but he's only $3,000 FanDuel salary and only $100 more on DraftKings. Projected at 8.7 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 6, and 32 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Andrew Vaughn here versus Andrew Heaney. I also like Eric Hosmer with a 49% batting advantage over Taylor Widener. Eric Hosmer is batting 19% better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a .848 OPS versus righties. And Taylor Widener, he pitches his worst ball versus lefty batters, 30% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .993 OPS versus lefties. Eric Hosmer is 3 for 5, batting .600 with a 2.667 OPS versus Widener because 2 of those 3 hits were for home runs and the other one was a double. He's $3,200 FanDuel salary, 600 more on DraftKings, projected at 12.3 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 12, and 35 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Eric Hosmer here versus Taylor Widener. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Adam Frazier. He's a value play with a 37% batting advantage over Taylor Widener. Adam Frazier bats 8% better versus righty batters, batting a .741 OPS versus righties. And Taylor Widener, we know he pitches his worst ball versus lefty batters, giving up a .993 OPS versus lefties. Adam Frazier is 2 for 6, batting a .333 batting average and a .666 OPS versus Widener. Those 2 hits were both singles. Now, he's only $2,800 FanDuel salary. He's $1,100 more on DraftKings, projected at 12.5 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 3, 6, and 3 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Adam Frazier here versus Taylor Widener. Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. I like Ryan McMahon with a 14% batting advantage over Logan Webb. Ryan McMahon, he's batting 6% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .774 OPS versus righties. And Logan Webb, he throws his worst ball versus lefty batters, 9% worse than his pitch to righties, giving up a .773 OPS versus lefties. Ryan McMahon is 4 for 8, batting .500 with a 1.6 OPS versus Webb. He's $3,400 FanDuel salary and $1,300 more on DraftKings. Projected at 9.5 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 9, 6, and 9 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Ryan McMahon here versus Logan Webb.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, who do we have at the shortstop position? I like Tim Anderson with a 40% batting advantage over Andrew Heaney. Tim Anderson is batting 35% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a 1.131 OPS versus lefties. And Andrew Heaney, he pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, 5% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .774 OPS versus righties. Tim Anderson is 4 for 11, batting a .364 batting average and a .819 OPS versus Heaney. He's $3,700 FanDuel salary and he's $1,700 more on DraftKings. Projected at 10.9 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 3, 31, and 31 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Tim Anderson here versus Andrew Heaney. Now I also like Brandon Crawford with a 26% batting advantage over German Marquez. Brandon Crawford is batting 21% better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a .886 OPS versus righties. And German Marquez, he's giving up a .652 OPS versus lefties. But the reason I like this pick is because Brandon Crawford is 10 for 30, batting a .333 batting average, and a .927 OPS versus Marquez. He's 3,300 FanDuel salary, 700 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.5 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 12 fantasy points per game on the season, and he's been on fire, scoring 31, 13, and 16 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Brandon Crawford here versus German Marquez. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. Now, I'm not in love with this pick because he's going up against a good pitcher, but the splits are good and he does have good batter versus pitcher history. So if you're looking for a stud that could get it done for you tonight, take a look at George Springer with an 11% batting advantage over Shohei Ohtani. George Springer is batting 4% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .954 OPS versus righties, and Shohei Ohtani, he pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, 7% worse than his pitch to lefties, giving up a .850 OPS versus righties. Now George Springer is 4 for 6 with a .667 batting average and a 1.881 OPS versus Ohtani. He's 4,200 FanDuel salary and 1,300 more on DraftKings. Projected at 15.7 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 15 fantasy points per game on the season. He's been on fire, scoring 44, 6, and 41 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like George Springer here versus Shohei Ohtani. Okay, now here's a super value play for you. If you're looking to save a ton of salary so you can stack your pitcher and stack your bats, take a look at Alex Dickerson with a 4% batting advantage over German Marquez. If you want to add this guy to your stack versus German Marquez, it's going to save you a ton of salary. Alex Dickerson is batting a .829 OPS versus righties, and German Marquez is giving up a .652 OPS versus lefties. But the reason I like this pick, well, there's 2 reasons. The first reason is because Alex Dickerson is 9 for 18, batting a .500 batting average and a 1.383 OPS versus Marquez. So that's a pretty big sample size. He's got a home run and 3 doubles in there. And he's only 2,300 FanDuel salary and only 100 more on DraftKings. So I love that price on both sites. He's projected at 11.2 fantasy points here tonight. Now, he's only averaging 7 fantasy points per game on the season, but he scored 19 and 7 fantasy points in the last 2 games. So I like Alex Dickerson as a value play here versus German Marquez.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.